Hey everyone, welcome from Simple Holistic Yoga. Today we're going to tap into some creativity on how to make wire wrap loops. And I'm going to show you two different techniques on how to do that. But before we get started, I just wanted to point out that I will be releasing another video tutorial soon on how to make 3 different types of wrap loops, which will be so you have your short neck, the long neck, and then the wrap neck loops. I will also be releasing another tutorial on troubleshooting with wrap loops. So say you've given your loops a try and they're still not coming out, to your satisfaction. Then you can check that tutorial on troubleshooting to see if perhaps you may be making some of the same mistakes or oversights that we tend to make when we kind of start out with wrap loops in the beginning. So stay tuned for those videos. I will add a link to those down below as soon as they are released, or you can even subscribe to the channel if you want, and then you'll be notified of any new videos. So having said that, let's get started on how to make our wrap loops. Okay, so we're going to need the same 3 tools we've been using thus far. We're going to need our chain nose pliers, our round nose pliers, and a pair of flush cutters. We're going to need some beads of your choice, but what I have right here are 6mm Swarovski crystals, and this part is important as for the kind of wire we'll need. I strongly suggest that you stay away from thicker or heavier gauge wires if you are just starting out on making wrap loops, because they're clearly a little more stiffer, so they require more control in making the loops. So I think 24 and 22 gauge is generally a very good start, when you just want to start practicing your loops. So let's get started. We'll start with the first technique, which let's take a piece of 24 gauge wire for that. And we want to start by making a head pin so that there's something at the base to hold our bead. So for that, you're going to take your wire in between your round nose pliers, and then you're going to rotate the pliers away from you until you form a nice J with it. Then you're going to come in with your chain nose pliers, and we're going to try to squish that J in together, like so. My hands are being a little slippery today. Okay, that's good enough. And if your J sort of went slanting in the way, which is very common, which can happen, just use your fingers and your pliers to straighten it. And then you can string your bead onto it. We're going to move the rest of these beads out of the way for now. Now you're going to take your chain nose pliers and you're going to hold your wire just above the bead. And then you're going to take your free hand, so the non-dominant hand, and you're going to push this wire over the nose of the plier away from you until you form an almost 90 degree with it. From here, you will release your chain nose pliers and then come in with your round nose pliers and grip the wire just at the bend. And now notice how I'm holding this. The thumb of my dominant hand, which is holding the pliers, is facing up, or almost facing up. Now you're going to take your non-dominant hand and you're going to move this wire over the top nose of the plier and bring it down until it touches the bead. Now we can't complete this loop because the bead is in the way and because the bottom nose of the plier is in the way. So in order to complete the loop, we now have to reposition our hand. So I'm going to hold the bead and the wire just for support, and then I'm going to release the grip of my dominant hand and start to rotate the plier towards me to the point where now my thumb is facing down And the nose of the plier, which was at the bottom at first, is now pointing up. So now we have enough room here to complete the loop. So now I'm going to take my non-dominant hand and then bring this wire in front of the bead once again until it is at a 90-degree angle, and that completes your loop. So here's your loop. And now we're going to use our chain nose pliers to grip the loop so that there's a nice firm grip here. And then we're going to use our hand to start to rotate this wire or wrap this wire against the neck of the bead. And try to wrap it as nice, tight, and snug as you can, and just keep wrapping until you get to the point where there's barely any place left between the bead and the wire. And that's when you come in with your flush cutters, and you're going to get in the corner as close as you can to the wire in the corner and give it a snip. Now when you do that, there will be a small piece of the wire. Let me see if you can see that. I hope you can see that. There's going to be a piece of the wire that is still pointing out, which is going to get into your clothes and just scratch everything. So you're going to take your chain nose pliers and squeeze that in as tight as you can so that it's tucked in, and that completes our wrap loop. I'm going to hold it at the bottom so you can see it. And that completes our wrap loop. So that was technique 1. Okay, so now we're going to make a wrap loop using the second technique. And this second technique is my preferred technique. And once we're done this, I'll tell you why I prefer this over the other, although both will give you the same results. So I've already gone ahead and made a head pin, this time with a 22 gauge wire, and strung my bead. And you can use a 24 gauge wire for this. I'm using the 22 so I can demonstrate how a slightly thicker wire requires a little more control. So we're going to come in with our chain nose pliers. Most of the steps are the same, which is we're going to grip it just above the bead. Then we are going to push the wire over the nose of the pliers to a 90-degree bend, releasing the grip, coming in with our round nose pliers and positioning them right by the bend. And then we're going to bring the wire over the top nose of the pliers until it touches the bead. Now this is the step that's going to be different. What we did in the first technique was we rotated the pliers towards us. So the thumb that's facing up is facing down, and the bottom nose of the plier that was down is now facing up. So instead of doing that, in this technique, what we're going to do is we are going to release the plier from this loop. So the top nose of the plier is going to come out of the half loop, and we're going to insert the bottom nose of the plier into this half loop. So your thumb or your arm or your right wrist, if that is your dominant wrist, is not moving at all. We've just repositioned the pliers, and now we have enough room to complete the wrap. So you're going to take that wire from in front of the bead and bring it down under and to the side until you have a 90-degree. And then now we have our loop. Now we're going to come in with the chain nose pliers and grip the loop so that it's not going anywhere. And now we're going to start to wrap the wire around the neck. This is the reason I am using the 22 gauge, to show you that when I try to do that with a slightly thicker wire, it's hard for me to get a nice tight wrap just using my hands. So you're going to use another set of pliers just to get some extra muscle, and then use that to help you wrap the wire nice and tight. And we stop just at the point where there isn't any more room left to wrap, and come in with your flush cutters, chop that wire, and then just squeeze in the edge that's pointing out. And that's our loop. So now why I prefer the second technique is, this is how we start out in the first technique. And then when we have to reposition our pliers, we're doing this to our hand. So now if you're making just a handful of wrap loops, that's fine. But if you have to make a whole bunch for your project, you are going to be doing this motion several times. And then holding your hand in this position with your thumb facing down while you do your wraps, etc., can sometimes strain your hands or your wrist. So for that reason, I think that the second technique, where you simply just take the plier or the top nose of the plier out and then insert the bottom nose, is a little easier on the hand. Again, this is just a matter of preference. Either option that you choose should give you the same results. Try both, see which one works best for you, and then just give your hand or try at both of these, and then decide for yourself which technique you like better. So that was it for the wrap loops. And then, as I mentioned, I will be introducing more tutorials on different types of wrap loops. So stay tuned or subscribe to the channel if you wish to see those tutorials. And once again, thank you for watching.